Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good morning. It is morning over here. My name is Linda. I am your back in the groove again coach, and it is Mindset Monday today. Mindset Monday. I am broadcasting on two sites, the famous Back in the Groove again for women, women who want to get back in their groove, and of course, my YouTube channel as well. So, let me tell you what we're talking about today. We're talking about comfortably numb. And I have to tell you why I started thinking of this. So here's a bit of the story. I live by myself. Well, I have two boarders that live with me, but we live our own lives. And generally in my house, it's quiet. When I finish all of my work, I might watch a program at night, but normally it's quiet. And when I go in my car, which is not very often these days, for my groceries, I will typically listen to CBC radio. I love that program. I've been listening to it for years. So when I go grocery shopping, it's about the only time that I listen to or I hear music. So of course, yesterday I'm at the grocery store and I'm listening to this song. I can't remember what it is right now. Oh yes, it was the Call Me Baby. Da, 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 da. It was like that. Anyways, I was enjoying the tune and I was loving it and I was dancing in the grocery store. Somebody said, "Hello." Somebody said, "You love that song?" I said, "Yeah, I love that song. It's awesome." So I listened to that song and it got me thinking, man, I miss listening to music. We're talking about comfortably numb, and I'm trying to explain how I got to that comfortably numb song. So I'm in my car thinking, oh man, I miss listening to music so much. And where else do we listen to music? Well, on the radio or when we used to go dances. So I put on the music on my car and I'm loving it. I'm just loving it. But I want to continue it when I get back home. So I found on YouTube one of my favorite bands is Pink Floyd. And so I put Pink Floyd on and I just started listening to all the Pink Floyd tunes. And of course, Comfortably Numb comes on and I'm got me thinking all of that to say. That's why we're talking about Comfortably Numb today, because that song came on and it got me wondering, are we comfortably numb? Are we comfortably numb? And I'm putting it out there. I'm asking you. I know right now, if you're going to watch this on replay, make sure you do the hashtag replay. Are you comfortably numb? Now, I'll give you some examples of how you would know if you are numb, if you are emotionally numb. For example, maybe you've lost interest in some things that are really, really important to you. You used to practice all sorts of different things. You used to have a lot of fun, but now you've lost interest in those. Well, that's an example. You've lost your interest. Perhaps you feel distant or detached from other people. And maybe it's because we're not seeing people as often, right? So you're feeling distant from them. You don't feel connected to them. Perhaps you're failing to access your feelings. Perhaps you are numbing your feelings, for example, by drinking more than usual, by using other types of substances, by eating more than usual, by shopping more than usual, right? I mean, when we shop more, eat more, when we drink more, that's a way of numbing our emotions, numbing our feelings. So that's another way of knowing. Perhaps you're feeling flat physically or emotionally. Perhaps you're having difficulties experiencing positive feelings such as happiness. So perhaps you're experiencing that comfortably numb kind of feeling. So if you are, well, one of the first things to do is to maybe acknowledge it, right? Acknowledge that you have been numbing yourself or you have been experiencing that comfortably numb feelings. So noticing how you are now with other people, noticing how you are feeling more and more and more disconnected to people. So I want this to be about mindset, right? Hello. Thank you. You're watching me on women who want to get back in their groove. Excellent. You're on you're on the great Facebook group. That's wonderful. So I just talked about some of the ways that you would know if you were comfortably numb or emotionally numb. I talked, for example, about how you might have lost interest, how you might be feeling distant, how you may be feeling to access those feelings. So, of course, today it's about shifting our mindset. So, I'm going to be first talking a little bit more about are you are you comfortably numb? Have you accepted status quo? Now, I'm not saying that we have to completely disregard what's happening. Okay, I'm not saying that. Because for various reasons, we have to follow the guidelines, the rules that wherever we live, I don't know where you live. Where do you live? Whoever's watching me right now, where do you live? Are you living in the province of Ontario? Are you living in Canada? Are you living in a different part of the world? Because wherever you are in the world, you might have different guidelines to follow for the COVID. So I'm not suggesting that we disregard them altogether. What I'm suggesting is to first notice if you have been affected by this. And the only way you're really going to know is by tuning in and noticing, okay, have I lost interest in my activities? Have I disconnected to my friends, ones that I used to hang out with? Am I experiencing an inability to really participate fully in life? Those are some of the ways that you'd be able to tell if you are comfortably numb. And of course, I'm using that name from that song, right? From Pink Floyd's song, Comfortably Numb, which is how I started thinking about. I wonder if that's what we're going through. Are we experiencing that comfortably numb? Maybe some of us are. So if you are experiencing that, what are you doing about it? So I'm going to be quiet for a second here. And I'm wondering, whoever's watching me right now, what are you doing about that if you are experiencing that numbness? What are you doing to get out of it, to start feeling more? What kind of things are you doing? And I'd like you to write something down in the chat box. Try to make this as interactive as possible. And then I'm going to give you some suggestions in just a second. So one of the ways to tap into that life again is by using our senses. So once you're aware, okay, I think that's what's going on. I'm experiencing that numbness, or maybe I have been numbing myself because I'm getting tired of what's going on with the pandemic. Once you're aware that that's what you've been doing, what I'm going to suggest is that we gradually start shifting our mindset and start using our senses more. That's what I want to focus on for the rest of the live today, is using our senses more. And I'm asking whoever's watching me now, how are you using or tapping into your senses now? And basically, we're talking about sight, hearing, tasting, touching, smell, of course, and your intuition. How are you using that now to get out of that comfortably numb feeling? How are you using that now? And you could add a few things in the chat box. I'd love to know what you're currently doing to unnumb yourself, if we could say that. Any comments at all on how you're doing it? So let's start with your eyes. How are you tantalizing your sight more and more? So let's talk a little bit about how we could do that. Well, I've been going outside lately. I go outside every day for walks, or almost every day. Yesterday, I decided to go snowshoeing. I did a quick live yesterday on me being outside snowshoeing, and I'm telling you, I tantalized my sight by getting out there and by just admiring where I was. Are you currently challenging yourself to see things, see different things, or to see things from a different perspective? Are you adding color to your environment where you can actually see things maybe from a different color, from a different perspective? Do you add light to your house, to your apartment? Are the lights on at night where you're able to see more, to experience your home environment more? So, how are you using your sight sense to wake up, to wake yourself up, to to stop yourself from numbing? So that's the first one I'm going to suggest is to start paying attention to what you're seeing. And if you are seeing more news because you're seeing the news, you're seeing and you're listening, of course, to some of the news. Is that affecting you? Is that bringing you more sadness, and is that contributing to this numbness? So I'm going to suggest to not see those things, to avoid seeing those kind of things. The next sense I want to talk about is hearing. Hearing. So when I was listening to the music in the grocery store, I was putting my attention on that music and I was listening to that great song, and it made me want to move. So I put my attention on something that was pleasant. I was hearing something that was pleasant. So, how are you challenging yourself to hear things differently or hear different things, right? Because if we are hearing the news, that might just contribute to our numbness. We don't want to be paying that much attention to the news. So, how are you adding more of your hearing sense? For example, you may not be near a river. Perhaps you can listen to peaceful music, relaxing music, the sounds of the river if you love that. Perhaps you could listen to people laughing. Now, I've done the laughter yoga last week, so perhaps you could listen to laughter to help you change your mood, to help to uh, to change that numbness. So, I'm suggesting that you start adding sight and more sounds, more a variety of sounds to your day-to-day life. The next sense, of course, is tasting. Tasting, now that's interesting. I've seen a lot of interesting recipes on Facebook or on YouTube. I'm wondering how you are bringing your sense of taste in order to not numb yourself. When we taste certain things, it wakes us up. When we taste something that's sour versus something that's sweet versus something that's spicy, woo, that seems to wake us up. So how are you adding cooking? And with cooking, what's beautiful about cooking, I talked about that in another live, is that you are tapping into your sights, your sight sound, your sight senses, as well as your tasting. So are you tasting different things? Are you challenging yourself to cook different recipes these days, or to add different spices to your regular recipes so that you can taste something different? So by using your tasting sense, that will also kind of make you come back into reality, right? Because that's living life. That is certainly living life. The next sense I want to talk about is touching. Now, I know that now the challenge is that we are not touching enough people. So here's what I'm going to suggest for that. Number one is that you do, well, if you're not able to physically touch somebody or hug somebody, that you, number one, hug yourself more, that you touch yourself more, that you feel yourself more, that you rub your arms more, that you rub your face more, and touch your face and touch your body more. You'll see that more when you start touching your body, like I'm doing right now, it makes me feel more alive. I can feel the warmth of my body as I'm touching myself. I can feel the warmth of my arms as I'm rubbing my arms. And when I touch my face, it feels alive. It really feels alive. So touching. And of course, one other way, I know we can't always touch somebody else, but if you do live with somebody else, are you able to just spend a few minutes touching? And I'm not talking about in a sexual sense here. I'm talking about, and some people might say it's therapeutic touch, where you're able to, just gently touch somebody's skin. Another way of feeling that, that type of connection is by looking at somebody's eyes when you are talking with them. Now, I know that's not the same as touching, but you'll notice that when you look at somebody's eyes, when you're talking with them, you will feel connected to them. And that connection is what's going to help you to break down those walls of that numbness that you might be feeling. So touching. The other sense that I want to talk about, there's two more. The other sense I want to talk about is the sense of our intuition. Our intuition, using our intuition more. So yesterday, when I um, when I went to do the groceries, okay, it wasn't so much about using my intuition then, but in the afternoon, when I decided to go outside, it was partly because I wanted to get out there and get some fresh air. And it was also partly because something inside me told me, just get out that, get it, just go outdoors, right? So I'm using my intuition to do something that's out of the norm, out of the ordinary. And for me, because I shared that I'm staying inside most of the time, except when I do my groceries and I go for my walks, I have to tap into that intuition, especially when that intuition is telling me to do something that could be helpful, that could be helping me connect with other people. So, are you using your intuition? Are you paying attention to your intuition? And one of the ways to pay attention to our intuition is by meditating, by simply closing our eyes and being in silence and noticing, what comes up. Sometimes we hear different little voices, sometimes there are ego, but a lot of times when we really pay attention, it's actually our intuition telling us to do something, telling us to call a friend. I had my intuition told me yesterday in the morning to not only call a friend, but to also visit her. So here's what I did yesterday. I FaceTime a friend and then I asked her if she wanted a coffee and what type of coffee that she wanted, because at first I was thinking I'll just drop off the coffee because I knew she might be a little bit reluctant to having a visit. So I picked up a coffee for her, for myself, and I drove to Ottawa. Now I live in Rockland, so I had to drive about 30 minutes. And when I got there, my friend was waiting outside. Now, my friend had not left her apartment except to go and start her car once in a while. My friend had stayed in her apartment for a long time, and I was so happy to see her outside. And Again, I just went with my intuition. I said, hey, if you're comfortable, why don't you get in the car and we'll go for a drive. So we decided to go a short drive, and we went for a walk. Now it was a short walk. My friend hadn't walked for a while. All that to say that I used my intuition, I used my gut, well, my intuition in this case, to, well, my intention wasn't to show kindness. My intention was to connect with a friend, to connect with a friend that I hadn't seen for a while, that had I knew hadn't gone out for a while. And of course, the um, the outcome of that was that she felt connected, and it was an act of kindness. But that wasn't my first intention, right? It was to be kind. It was to show her that I'm here for her, here just, and I would have been okay with just giving her the cup of coffee. That would have been enough for me. But because I tapped into my intuition, because I acted on my intuition, I was able to connect with a friend. I was able to make her day differently. Hopefully she had a better day, and I connected with her even afterwards when I went snowshoeing. So, how often are you using your intuition to connect to your friends? How often, right? So, we're talking about our senses here. I started talking about numbing. Are you comfortably numb? Is that what's going on? Are you becoming more and more numb with what's happening? Numb by the news, numb by yet another COVID case kind of thing, and after a while it personally drives me crazy. I don't even listen to the news. I don't listen to the news. Every now and then, not very often, I will read what's going on. I'll of course continue practicing the safety measures and all that stuff, but I've been using more and more of my senses. And the last sense is the smell sense. And I'm just going to take a second here. I just smelled my cup of coffee. Um, I love smelling things. Now, I love smelling. Um, I love smelling gum. I don't chew gum very often, but every time I chew gum, I will always smell it first. So I just love the smell of gum. How often are you spending time smelling things before you actually consume them? Because we can actually numb ourselves from just eating and not really noticing what we're eating, or tasting what we're eating, or smelling what we're eating. So just for a minute here. Now I don't have a fruit with me. I have, my mug, and I've used this actually. This is the same mug that I used when I did the 5-day challenge, Take Time for You Now challenge. I used the same mug because it happens to be one of my favorites. So I'm using the sense of sight, but I'm also using my memories because I purchased this mug in Mexico last year when I went. But I often will fill it up with things. So now it happens to be coffee, but when I did my Facebook challenge, 5 days for you now, Take Time for You Now challenge, I had filled it up with frozen yogurt. So just for fun, take a fruit, take something that you want to eat or something that you want to um, to drink, and first of all, just feel the cup. Just feel the cup. Now I'm using my sense of touch. I'm using my sense of touch, and I'm noticing that there is a crack here. So just using my sense of touch, I'm noticing that my cup is still warm. I like that. I like that sensation of warmth. And I'm going to smell my coffee, and I'm going to savor that smell. So I'm using my sense of smell, I'm using my sense of touch to savor this moment, to savor this very moment here. And now I'm going to have a sip of my coffee. And I swished it around in my mouth. to notice the different sensations in my mouth. So I'm using smell, but I'm also using taste in this particular experiment here. I'm challenging you to try that. So as I'm nearing the end of this live, I'm going to challenge you to change your mindset, right? If you're experiencing this comfortably numb thing, if you're experiencing you're losing interest in things, or that you're feeling detached from your friends and feeling detached from this, your life, or if you're having difficulty experiencing positive feelings such as happiness, I'm going to challenge you to use your senses, all of your senses, and you may use some of them at the same time, like what I've just done. I've touched my cup, I felt the warmth of my cup, and I used the sense of smell and then the sense of taste. So I'm challenging you today to use your senses and to savor that moment. When we tap into all of our senses, it awakens us. It wakes us up to a whole other, um, I'm trying to think, experience, right? We start feeling things. We start feeling things. And, one of the things that I shared a while ago is when we listen to music, we can allow that music to move now, to move us and to shake us up. So if you're listening to music, notice how your body feels when you're listening to that music. Notice how it affects you when you're listening to that music, and have fun with it. That's another way of getting out of that comfortably numb thing, is putting some music on and just kind of moving around and and dancing away, right? So that's the challenge for today, is use your different senses. And when you're using that sense, notice, pay attention to what sense that is. Oh, now I'm really using my sight. And, for example, I'm really noticing the different little patterns on my cup. I'm using my sight to really pay attention to this particular object, to notice the crack. So when I'm using my senses, it awakens me to this very present moment. And when I'm living in the moment as much as possible, it brings me back to life. It brings me back to life instead of just accepting status quo and accepting this comfortably numb type of feeling that you may be experiencing. So this is it, right? This is the challenge for today, for our Mindset Monday, is to tap into all of our different senses. So this is Linda, your Back in the Groove Again coach. And it's been quite an interesting conversation. I hope that when you do listen to it on the replay, add hashtag replay. If you're listening to this on YouTube, write replay, write your comments down. And if you want more information on my services, you can go to my website at backinthegrooveagain.com. If you are really interested in having a conversation, I'm going to encourage you to go to my website and to go to I'm just going to my website here. Let me just share my screen with you here for a second. Just a second. I'm going to share my screen with you, so you have an idea of what my website looks like. Right, so this is my website. I'm going to be adding the free gift here on this particular page. And there is a video series here. If you're looking for an ideal career, you can go to my video series and sign up for my 5 Secrets to Discover Your Ideal Career. You'll find that there. And in the About Me section, you'll find out a little bit about me. And you'll also have a link here to your Back in the Groove Accelerate session right here. This will bring you to my calendar. so that you can have an accelerate session here where we'll talk, we'll have a conversation. And, if you decide you want to pursue your services with me, then we can talk about that too. So thanks again for listening. If remember, write hashtag replay. And if you have any comments, if you're up to that challenge of using your senses to uh, break that pattern of that numbness pattern that you might be experiencing, you want to get back in your groove again, then challenge yourself to using your senses. And who knows, maybe that'll be a nice, interesting 5-day challenge. I'm trying to think of another 5-day challenge for our group. It could be an interesting one to do. Anyways, food for thought. Talk to you soon now. Bye bye. Have a great day.